Hello, everyone. Tyrone Nakwadase here for Talkin' Taiko with Tyrone. It's been a while, but I needed to make sure I get this episode out as soon as possible because it's something that's happening literally right now as we speak. I promise, though, I do have a couple episodes in the backlog, and you guys are definitely going to want to listen to those. They will be coming out. They will be coming out. They will be coming out. But in the meantime, let's talk about why we are all here today. So I have the group called Mujo Dream Flight, the trio you see on the screen here, and they are currently on tour. And so I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves, and then I think we'll go ahead and go for there and learn about why we're doing this special episode today.
Hi, we are Mujo Dream Flight, and actually the three co-founders of the group are all here talking to you today. And I am Man Man. I use they them pronouns.
The place that our name actually comes from is that we're sort of a super group of three previous groups. So you may have heard of Mujo Creative, which is a group that Man Man founded. The Dream in Mujo Dream Flight is from me. My name is Sasen, and I use my name as a pronoun. Sasens, and I am the founder of Dream Team, which is another one of the groups that merged into this. And then the flight is a placeholder for frontline tackle players, which is co-founded by.
Hi, me. I'm Mazine Rose Leitner, and I use Fair pronouns.
Awesome. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about because before we talk about the tour, you talked about how this is the kind of the super group and how we've got and even the name is actually a super group kind of combination name. So how did the three of you all come together to form this ensemble, this new ensemble?
I mean, we all met through LATI, Los Angeles Taekwondo Institute, being a part of the community there with Asano Taekwondo US. This lovely banner we have here, it's kind of great. And so we were performing together in a variety of other combinations, in different groups at Asano, and so we're all trans non-binary people, and I think we all just have certain things that we're working towards, and at some point we were all in Man Man's group, Mujo Creative, and we realized that we needed there were certain things that we needed in order to support each other sort of artistically and as just to keep Taiko sustainable in our lives. So that's a big part of why it was important to also be bringing in ideas from these three different groups,
Yeah, and also I want to highlight that the three of us have a lot of shared values in what we want to look for in a group that will fulfill our own artistic needs as an artist. So then when we come together, the more we talk about what we envision as a group, we just let's start with the three of us and see where we go. And the decision and the intention to combine the three of our groups' ideas it's because we want to highlight the fact that all three of us have this shared values, and we want an equal the equity as artists as we go on this journey together.
Yeah, and I think taking that space and being able to there was a lot of discussion. There was in terms of what do we need, what's working, what isn't working, and what solutions can we come up with that aren't just doing what we've been doing.
Mm-hmm. Taking the space for those conversations and being willing to try out things that might upset some people, but if we think that they're important towards making things better, not just for ourselves but for others in the Taiko community too, that was just really important in terms of how we ended up coming together and starting to work together as a collective.
I see. So the tour itself you guys are going to a lot of different places here. And I'm going to pull up that list that was sent. So it looks like you've already been to Salt Lake City, already been to Denver, Lincoln, Des Moines. Looks like you're currently in the Twin Cities.
Yes, we are.
So all those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places have been able to enjoy your show. But the places that you are going next. So Dixon, where's that?
Actually
That one's
changing.
canceled.
Oh,
It is
cancel
changing.
changing. Okay.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's
A
still
lot of
shifting.
flux.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, should I not read off this list, and would you like to just tell me kind of where you're going next, or is this still pretty good relatively? Maybe.
Well, I mean, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, and
Okay.
so maybe, I mean, yeah, we can talk about what we're more or less sure of, but
Okay.
yeah, I think talking about the overall purpose of the tour, I think would be a really important place to start.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Great. So
Why are
switching
we in the
this.
Twin Cities design?
Yeah, so basically in 2019, I came out as trans. And that did not go over very well with my parents, to say the least. And it was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years of just back and forth, them not getting it, them increasingly harassing me, pressuring me to not be who I am.
Mhm.
And I had to eventually go no contact with them. And this ultimately escalated in them basically pressuring my younger brother to disinvite me from his wedding. So this was like summer 2022. And I was actually sitting in the car with Sasin and another friend when I had gotten the text from my brother saying like, oh, maybe you just shouldn't come to the wedding. And I was just really frustrated, and I hadn't been back to the Twins because I'm originally from the Twin Cities, Stillwater, Minnesota.
Okay. Okay.
To be specific.
And you started
Yeah.
playing taiko out here. too.
Yeah, I started playing taiko at St. Olaf. St. Olaf Taiko is where I got
Okay.
my start. So I was just sitting in the car and I was saying, I don't know if I'll ever see, the house I grew up in again. When I'll see my hometown again, and there's so much of my stuff in that house. I wish I could just do a road trip out there and go grab it. And Sasin just turns to me and goes, yeah, we can do that. So
Let's just, teach taiko workshops for gas money and, and safe places to stay for, some, trans non-binary people, driving across the country like this. So yeah, we've been so grateful for the support. But so, yeah, if you want to talk about the name of the tour.
yeah, so the name of the tour is Haimweh, which is the Bavarian word for homesickness or home longing.
Oh, okay.
And I'm Bavarian largely by ancestry, and that actually did have a significant presence in my childhood. There was like a Bavarian restaurant, and we like 5 minutes from our house, and we'd go to Oktoberfest every year, like without fail. So there were just certain things that like I had this like partial connection to, but not fully. So hoping to explore and connect more with that too.
I see. I mean,
Yeah,
it makes.
so-
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, the reason I said, hey, we can, is that there have been the taiko groups that came before us, often coming out of the Los Angeles area. And, I've read their tour blogs, like, I saw the places they stopped. And so I knew, and usually they were doing it because they were driving drums from, and doing performances, scheduled along the way, right? And, lecture demos at schools and things like that, right? So like I saw that and I knew that it could be done. And even if it looked a little bit different for us, I thought that we could do it. But instead of us carrying drums, actually, we're just carrying, our belongings to, be able to be on the road for this entire month of May 2023. And actually the idea was to leave space for Mazine's stuff, back at home, including some drums, actually, not,
Yeah.
not
Oh,
taiko,
yeah.
taiko,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, basically like space for Mazine to bring stuff back to Los Angeles, because
Yeah.
that's actually the point. So yeah, I know it's been surprising some of the groups lately, like, oh, you want to bring your drums? And we're like, this isn't like a normal taiko tour, I guess. Like
Yeah.
actually, need to borrow your drums, please. You know, yeah, and for me, the community support is really the only thing that's made this possible. We could not do this without the taiko community. And I think to me also, you know, in that moment, just dealing with the heartbreak of what you were going through. I couldn't be having to go through that completely alone. And for us as trans non-binary taiko players, you know, to have to show up to practice and, you know, everything's okay when nothing is okay. And you know, here in Los Angeles, like I have to say, it's so beautiful. Not here, I'm in Minneapolis right now, but when, you know, now that I live in Los Angeles, because Tyrone is, I've lived all over the country doing taiko things, right? You know, like we met in Boston, right?
Yeah.
You know, I started in San Francisco. Like we each started in different places that are, you know, some of which, you know, they're not necessarily taiko hubs. San Francisco's a taiko hub, but you know, Boston isn't. You know, Hong Kong isn't. You know, I don't know, you know, what you consider Minnesota, but St. Olaf, you know, Northfield, Minnesota isn't great. So like, and we've seen how people are like not just trans people, I mean like people in the taiko community in general, so like Asian Americans can be so isolated, potentially like feeling really isolated or, you know, sort of exotified sometimes. And so it was actually really important for us, you know, especially because of where we're going, but also just to be, as we're driving along, showing some love to these communities where it's like they're on the front lines of taiko alive in their hearts, in their communities, you know, and they have so much less help maybe. Like in Los Angeles, we have like multiple generations, we have so many different groups, and we're incredibly grateful for that. You know, and it's such a different feel. And I think like being able to share other groups has been incredibly important. So, you know, yeah, also that means in terms of right, like, you know, aren't necessarily, you know, going to have, you know, huge audiences for taiko, if that makes any sense, right? Like, you know, not necessarily places where there's a lot of budget for these things. You know, in general, like this is not a money-making tour. That is, we know that the whole thing is at a loss almost, you know. So, and that's again part of why. I mean, you know, in a way, what we're doing is completely impossible. It does not make any sense financially. It's risky from a safety perspective. Yeah, like right, and yeah, we're doing this because, like, honestly, even in I'm fine with trans people, and yet, like, you know, maybe sometimes they may think that, like, I just need to get your pronouns, and that's all I need in order to be supportive of the trans community. And some of the issues that we deal with that are like more life-changing than simply pronouns. Like our parents often deeply reject us and are ashamed of us, and we lose connection to entire parts of our family town, right? From the places where we were growing up. And so this is also so much about reclaiming those spaces, and especially with what's going on with the political climate right now, with trans people being used as literally political footballs, and like with our, you know, our lives, our healthcare in the balance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even more important. It's even scarier, but it's even more important. Like we can't let this stand. And so there's a part of us that's just like, what if this is our last chance to go through the country being out and open? What if? You know, what if a couple of years from now we all get rounded up, and I mean, who knows? I'm sorry, I don't want to get too dark, but don't kid yourself. The same way that we are looking for, oh no, what if like concentration camps are being brought back? You know, what if internment is going to be brought back? What if for different, you know, whether that's for Muslims, you know, whether that's for, you know, yeah, whichever POC group is the scapegoat of the month.
Yeah.
Whether it's trans people, gay people, you know, like with all the just, just terrible rhetoric out there about like, oh, you're doing something to children, you're groomers, this is your ideology. Like, we are trying to be alive, and we're trying to find, I mean, we know that we needed role models when we were young. We didn't get those role models, and so to find those who would appreciate currently what we needed then, and to make sure they know that like life is worth living, please don't give up. And like, there is support, you have role models, you have people out there, like, and on one hand, like, some parents are more accepting, and then there's what we dealt with yesterday.
Sure. Yeah.
Just yesterday, actually.
Just yesterday, we finally had that showdown.
It still feel really raw.
Yeah, we scheduled taiko practice for ourselves right after that, and I mean, we were just lying on the floor. Our limbs felt like weight, just dead weight. Just processing what we had just been through.
Yeah.
And if I felt like that, what did I feel? I felt like I'd been beat up physically. So
I think it's really interesting. And I never really thought about that from the perspective of kind of talking about like potentially, that fear of like, are we going to get round up? Are we going to be put in these internment camps for your community? That's interesting. I think it's the scars, especially since it was, from a Japanese American perspective. This, my grandparents were the ones that were of that generation that went to the camps, and I have some aunts that were born to the camps. So relatively, even for me, I'm only like one generation removed from that. And so growing up, we heard a lot about, not a lot, but we heard about it. And kind of even today, I think that those fears, even in the back of my mind, still kind of exist. Sometimes they move to the front, sometimes they move to back, depending on what's happening. But it's kind of an interesting connection that I hope that people can kind of, really make that connection, especially woven in kind of with taiko being like a Japanese, originally from Japan, but really kind of I think more of the style that we all play, more of that Japanese American art form, and kind of with that Japanese American history, how that even that there's communities that are still impact and have those same fears that maybe people down my lineage might have also had, that it's still, even though that happened a long time ago, some of those fears are still current today. And it's kind of like woven in with that common thread of the Japanese American history, and then how the Japanese American history kind of ran in with taiko and those histories. And so it's kind of an interesting I guess connector, so to speak, that I just kind of, I never really thought of until you kind of started mentioning that right now. So that's really interesting. I love how that
sorry, I just wanted to say one thing, which is like, especially post-pandemic, where such a rise in
the anti-Asian hate crime, all that. And I can't help also thinking a lot about, especially post-pandemic, but at the same time, it's been going on for so long, like the exotification and alienation, and like Asian being seen as perpetual foreigners, and Asian art form also bear that harm, like being pushed to present like in a certain way, or being like the pressure to show up a certain way, that instead of being true to who we are, but it's just to fit the certain expectation of who we are.
And artistically, that's really woven into the material that we, have been developing for this tour. So I'm Bengali. So my parents were born in Kolkata, India, which is in the state of West Bengal. But, I've also become aware that actually my mom's side of the family is from the lands now known as Bangladesh, because they're right next to each other. It used to be one region, and as part of the colonial harm, I mean, specifically as a punishment for revolting, against the colonial power, the state was divided in half, literally divide and conquer.
I didn't know. Okay. Yeah.
Religious tensions were sown, families were, forced to choose, even as they were leaving, you know, ensuring that the seeds of community being planted at the
Mm.
time. I mean, like, and not in addition to, you know, losing their homes. So it just created, yeah, just millions of refugees. So you're frozen. Oh, okay, you're back.
Yeah, I think we're moving. Yeah, it's
And-
like you
And
froze
so
for
yeah,
like a
like sorry, I
second.
just wanted to say I'm
Yeah,
not
no.
just that I'm Bengali, but yeah, that I'm from
Mhm.
okay. Yes. So yes. So anyway, so I'm Bengali, and yeah, I'm bringing rhythms that I grew up with. I'm bringing them to taiko as well.
Mhm.
Songs that, you know, songs by artists that I grew up with. You know, I'm singing in Bangla. You know, and I mean that's how I got my start. Like my parents taught me Bengali folk songs and Bengali folk dance and semi-classical dance. So yeah, like
Oh, okay, okay.
yeah. So I grew up performing at like Diwali festivals and stuff, right? You know,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And actually, like
bringing that back.
through our creative exploration, like with both Sasan and Messiah's encouragement, so I'm from Hong Kong. I grew up in a British colony, and yeah, like playing taiko is actually one of the things that I do to like sort of finding connection with the heritage and roots, because some of the philosophy like that is being pushed to the side, like even though it still exists in the culture, but it's not being prioritized in many of the arts that's being practiced when I grew up. So
Mm.
we're all like encouraged to learn, like, so I became very, very interested in folk arts. But this last couple years I finally really get to, like, for example, I start writing one of the piece that I wrote for a documentary called Blurring the Color Line. It's about Chinese American in the segregated South. In fact, it's actually going to premiere on PBS World's channel this month.
Oh, wow.
So myself, Amy Naylor, and Heidi Chen, and Carrie Carter, and Mujo Creative also did music. I was the music director for that documentary. And so I composed the theme at the time, actually around the same time when George Floyd was murdered, as the same time when I was processing the anti-Asian hate crime during the early onsets of the pandemic.
Mm.
And I remember writing that melody because I had just been verbally assaulted by the older white man in my own neighborhood down at the park that's just, you know, walking distance from my home. And when I wrote that melody, like it was just so deeply connected, and I was just unpacking so much pain. And last year, I finally was able to put that into Cantonese, and actually, we recently just performed it with Mujo Dream Flight, and Carrie like flew out from DC joining us, and like just being able to. There's just so many things, and I can't quite put in words right now. Like the concept of homesickness and where is home, and even the home that I used to call home or now call home, there's still so many layers of alienation and oppression that I still have so much trouble to really have to dig really deep to find like what is that true meaning of home? Where is it?
So many personal stories woven into the title, into the tour. It sounds like into the show. So it sounds like maybe you could just elaborate a little bit, so like so you can kind of give people an idea of what to expect if they're lucky enough to be able to come to one of the performances that your group is doing. So it sounds like there's that elements of, you know, taiko, obviously, but also dance, singing. Any is there any other type of I guess art forms kind of woven into the piece, or spoken word? Okay.
Storytelling, spoken word, yeah. I mean, and with singing, I would even say specifically Rabindra Songit. So the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, or Tagore, as he's called in the West, he's like the first Asian to win a Nobel Prize. But yeah, he's Bengali. He wrote the national anthems of both India and Bangladesh. But yeah, so he has this thing where he uses songs to sort of frame storytelling, and like, yeah, basically like creating, it's like making a musical, right?
I see.
And so, yeah, like, for performances that are, more rooted in, the Haimweh tour, we're using some of that music similarly, like, so for instance, when, if it's like, talking about something, very difficult or something that, there might be a piece, sort of transitioning between these things, like, that also has those themes and so on, just like, using Robindo Shongit's songs as like as sort of structural element, as like a glue to bring things together.
Okay. Okay.
I would say the different performances are pretty tailored to the different events.
I was just gonna ask that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so talk about what we're doing on Friday.
So on Friday, we're going to open for St. Olaf Taiko's spring concert.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we're doing a 20-minute set. And Sassen had the lovely idea of, so I was like, oh, what should we play? And Sassen's like, you're gonna hate me. And so Sassen goes, let's only play songs that you, Mazine, have had like either like a primary composition credit or like strong co-composition credit on. So
yeah, and in addition, St. Olaf still plays some pieces that you wrote from back in the day. So
nice. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we had a joint practice with them
on Monday. Yeah.
Cute.
It's amazing.
They're awesome. St. Olaf was great.
Yes. And actually, I do want to uplift, like, talking about, like, in terms of our composition. Mazine, do you want to share a little bit of, like, your composition approach? Like, in particular, I'm also thinking about, because, like, belongings. I do love how much our group center neurodivergence, center accessibility.
Yeah.
And, like, I know I'm mid-sentence, but I'm
no, that's, yeah. So I feel like a lot of my process is I'm autistic. And
so am I.
Yeah, autistic. Yeah. And so for me, I feel like a lot of my composition is kind of like following the like sensory patterns that I'm seeking, or ways in which I self-stimulate.
Okay.
The way rhythms and I guess stories arise from that process.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that means like exploring all kinds of temporal relationships. Yeah. Trying to think of
Me
what
too.
else to say.
Like,
What about you? What about your
Yeah, what about you?
process?
What about you? Sorry, that was my exactly. What about you? What
What
about
about you? Nice try. This is what we're like.
accessible.
This is normal.
What about me? So I'm autistic, and I grew up with selective mutism, situational mutism.
Okay.
And I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so I have symptomatic hypermobile joint hypermobile joint. The words are very long. Anyway, so I have a lot of mobility challenge as well. So my process, I love improvisation in the sense that, like, when I teach, for example, I love teaching without words. I love teaching with body percussion. I love teaching with connection, that is just like how I lead the class and move the class through rhythm learning and practice and drills with like as minimum like verbal instruction as possible. And also I apply that a lot to my composition too. And for that sense, I love structural improvisation because it's communication in real time. It's that communicate and co-create. Therefore, each time the piece will look different depending on who I work with and the environment. Circling back to earlier when we talk about how we travel so little equipment and mostly with our belongings, like our group, and also we struggle to find space to practice too. And that for so many reasons, we become so creative and resourceful, we can practice with no instruments, or with one instrument, or with two instruments, or with any space that you throw us in, we can make that into a practice space. And so there's so much more. And then I'm also thinking about how we think of numbers, right? Because music a lot of times is numbers related, but everybody have relationship with number in a very different ways. What I love most about our practice is that we will be so transparent and try to communicate honestly with what is working and what is not working. Something worked for one person doesn't mean that it worked for the other person. How can we find that common ground to provide that support? And one more thing, this is actually what we experienced just yesterday, and I'm still processing it. So Mazan and Sasan have been co-creating a piece called Concrete. And there's a part that it's first wrote for in a play in the Yatai style, Yatai Bayashi style.
Okay.
It's played in that way. And yesterday was the first time that we finally have drums. It's first time we're gonna perform in premiere. No, that's not premiere. We're gonna perform the piece on Friday. First time as our group. So it's the first time to actually hit play on the drums. So I've very limited experience with Yatai Bayashi, and when we start playing, then we realized that Sasan was like, "Wait a second, Man, you look like you're in pain. Like, what? Let's work on that." So and Sasan, like you said it in a way that is empowering, because you told me like I am a really good taiko player, very experienced taiko player. I can make it work. I can make it look powerful
at the cost of your body.
And Sasan is able to see that right away. And I'm really grateful that Sasan called stop. So the reason is, so I have joint hypermobility. So my sacrum is hypermobile. My lumbar vertebrae is hypermobile. My neck is hypermobile. And I call it symptomatic hypermobility because I have a lot of pain, a lot of inflammation through it's been actually, I have been getting more and more symptoms over the last couple of years. So for me to be able to sit in the yatai stand, I need so much effort to stabilize my sacrum, to stabilize my neck. And as a result, I become very stiff, because I was just trying so hard to stabilize. And then yesterday on the spot, we made a decision
that you don't have to be playing in yatai anymore, right? It's like, great, let's move that to a stance that like where your body is in, like a place of power, like knowing that your body can do well. To me, it's also like part of respecting the art form is like, right, the 5 areas of respect that we talk about, those are alive and real all the time, not just when we want them to, and not just when we first introduce people to taiko. So respecting yourself, your body, right, and respecting each other's bodies, like that has to be at the forefront, just as much as respecting the equipment, respecting the sensei, and so on, right? Like, especially in a situation like this, I mean, it is us, right? Like we are responsible for these decisions and responsible for each other's like health and well-being in a way. So yeah, I mean, I just looked at the situation and I was like, I can't in good conscience be putting my friend, because I understand, even without knowing exactly what's going on with my friend's body, I know that, like, I know what it took to train myself with yatai as a form. I'm deeply grateful for the teachers who were patient with me. And I know that in a week, we can't, I don't think it's wise, for our bodies. And so I think for us to make that kind of call, to even have that kind of thing, and we're admitting on this podcast right now, that like Man's not the most experienced at yatai, but we're not ashamed of that. And like honestly, it's also a way of valuing, like, well, Sasan is more experienced at yatai, right? And so like it's also about how we're sort of valuing each other's experience. Like equality or egalitarian doesn't necessarily mean have a big ego and think that everyone can, that everyone's experiences are already the same. Like, no, it's also about brutal honesty. But the point is always in service of, making sure that we're all going to be able to work well together. And at the end of the day, the art's going to be so much better.
Yeah, that's like, like the performance, like when we were running it, it really shined just when we made those changes. Like,
so as a result of that, I'm actually playing in naname style. And I already feel like so much better. And one thing is also, Tyrone, did you have something to say? I noticed you have some sort of movement. Look like you want to say something.
Oh no, go ahead, finish your thought, and then I'll hop in. Finish your thought. I don't want keep going.
I was gonna say was that now I lost my train of thought. Ha 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 ha.
No, that happens to me all the
ha.
time. It's okay.
Playing in
My
the
entire life.
omiyage anime.
Better art, it shines. Practice yesterday.
Okay, I'll ask my question. I'll make my comment, and it'll come back. And so if it comes out, just say I remembered what it was, and we'll go back. What I was gonna say was,
Oh, I remember.
Okay, go for it. Go for it.
Pain. It's about pain. It's about like because for a long time I finally understood why I'm so afraid of yatai. It's not that I haven't tried. It was actually a yatai club. I performed like briefly for some pieces with some short-term gig, and performed yatai. And now I fully understand. Like there's something about this. Like I know that I can work hard, but then like when it have to work extra hard, then I would choose for. I mean, I'm not saying other style I didn't work hard. Like I worked very hard for Naname style too.
Yeah.
But understanding that then it's empowering to tell myself, okay, this is gonna hurt me, so I'm gonna choose not to do it. And we've been teaching workshop that also encourage like, hey, actually, if you feel pain, that's a signal that you should take a step back instead of push through the pain, because pain is telling you that you're doing something harmful to your body. Your body is telling you a message, please stop. Let's find a different way to do this. And
maybe you have a question, right? Like so many times I say like, hey, if something hurts, maybe you have a question, right? Like what, right? It's like there's sometimes there may be a different technique.
Yeah.
You know, or maybe even just a misunderstanding of technique sometimes too. But you know, yeah, I mean, because sometimes it's about even knowing what the right question to ask is. But anyway, I think overall, like actually I wanted to come back to, what our activities on this tour are. So we've been talking about performance, we've been talking about how we accommodate each other, we've been talking about new compositions, which is all super exciting. But I also wanted to share that, right, so we have this glorious menu of workshops, and of course private lessons and so on that we offer. But like, we put a lot of thought into those as well, also in terms of spreading, both like spreading, like bringing our whole selves to the table through dance, singing, storytelling, like neurodivergence, citizenship or not, immigrant story, all of this stuff is really interwoven into our workshops. Also like values and traditions and like the teachers who meant a lot to us. Other aspects of our work and education. We're all educators, all three of us, in different ways. So the workshops are a really big deal. And honestly, most of the places we're going right now, it's been workshops because, like I said, we're going to places that don't necessarily, we're not necessarily going to be able to just financially even afford to put on a concert. Like concerts can be really expensive to do. So I wish that, like, it'd be lovely. I mean, in a way, maybe we're sort of laying the seeds for maybe future concerts that maybe won't have to involve us leaving space in the car for, for all of Mizan's things, so maybe this sort of there and back again, huge loop that we're doing through, we're headed through this Pacific Northwest and, down through the coast of California, like maybe laying the seeds to do more performances in the future, maybe some residencies and workshops. But there's one other thing that I absolutely must highlight, which is that a huge, like an important part of this tour here is that, so all three of us are founders, co-founders, or just heavily involved in pretty much the two major gender justice organizations in the North American Taiko community, in the English-speaking Taiko community.
Okay.
So so all of us have been involved in or co-chaired and the organization currently called Taiko Margins in Solidarity, which used to be called Women in Taiko.
Okay.
So, and also
wait, I'm sorry, did you say Taiko Margins or Taiko Marches?
We'll type it for you, but Taiko Margins.
Margins,
so Taiko
okay.
Marginalized gender.
Got it.
Taiko marginalized gendered people basically is what that stands for. So Taiko Margens in solidarity. And yeah, because I mean, honestly, women in Taiko is absolutely not an inclusive label. And I mean, for many of us, like for many years, that's been part of why we cannot join, because we're just, yeah, immediately like put in a binary gender box that is absolutely not okay for us. So yeah, so heavy involvement in Taiko Margins in Solidarity, and also Nazain and I, along with our friend Ariel, co-founded Trans Non-Binary Taiko Artists Global Action Collective, or TNTA for short.
Yeah, so that's a long time. You
And
want
so
to type that one in the.
first,
You say you want to type that one in the chat too. Yeah.
oh, Nazain wanted to do it.
I got it.
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
was a
well,
long title. I was like, okay.
So TNTA, as we call it, I mean, you know, to our knowledge, it's the only trans non-binary serving Taiko Taiko advocacy group.
Okay.
So we're not talking about Taiko groups that are primarily, you know, of folks who are holding these identities, but we're actually talking about groups where, you know, we come together for support spaces, you know, events running groups, you know, for Taiko practitioners, Taiko, yeah, learners, and so on, right? Taiko professionals, etc. So yeah, TNT is a very different kind of group, because actually the group is completely secret, and this is because we do have members who are not out as trans, trans or binary, in their groups, and that's something that's really important for us to have. I mean, for queer Taiko players in general, you know, yeah, we have had a few queer events through, at least that I've known of, through the Taiko community, and there has been some of that kind of safety that people have tried to do. And just for trans people, it's specifically for a trans space, and you know, with the knowledge that it's largely trans people of color coming, it's times 10 in terms of our security. And so we just ask, we really are constantly trying to get the word out, because like, and I'm here to tell you that they're just not out to you yet. Yeah, and it's just amazing. Like I have a memory one time of, you know, I just decided, you know, 9 members of this event, but basically I ended up standing up for myself and saying, no, I'm not a woman. And because I stood up for myself, actually a couple of other people jumped in and said, me neither, me neither. That's, I was including Manma. And that was how I found out, by me standing up for myself in that moment. Apparently that meant that I made space for others to, to also be able to be out, and to, for us to be able to like live our truths and be treated, be treated better.
For a long time in my Taiko career, I didn't openly talk about my queerness and my gender identity. And I didn't even realize like that, because I don't feel safe to openly talk about that. I worry about people canceling jobs, or people don't want to hire me anymore. And like I don't know, maybe it did happen. So I like, or maybe not, right? I never can really know.
We constantly are forced to wonder. And like, I don't think some of this is even explicit in people's minds. They may just be like, you know, I don't really like working with that person, you know, like, oh, that person's too aggressive. And it's like, how do I tell you that when you tell someone, when you tell someone who's transmasculine or, you know, non-binary, who was assigned female at birth, that they're too aggressive, what you're saying is, hey, woman, know your place. It's deeply misogynistic, and it's rooted in delete anybody who is not holding to the gender norms that put me and others in power. So we can't address anti-transness without addressing misogyny. It's not possible. We can't address trans misogyny, which is the intersection of these things that's specifically experienced by trans feminine people, without addressing these. So I don't know. I think, please, could you talk a little bit about what it's like being trans feminine in the Taiko community?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, at least in my experience, I haven't met a whole, there's not a lot of us, at least that I've met. Yeah, like can count on one hand the number of trans femmes in the taiko community that I know. And yeah, I feel like so often like certain kinds of like fears, particularly like in space like around restrooms and children and like costumes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, like that's like a predatory person trying to get access to quote unquote women's spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
like I'll say also like being non-binary too, it's like which is more important to me to be recognized, my femininity or like my non-binariness? And it's like I shouldn't, it should be both, it should be the both together. But so often it's like, I think early on I was like really trying to defend my non-binariness. And then I realized like, oh, that means people would say, oh yeah, I'm non-binary and loop me in with the cis men. And then it's like, okay, well, that's the last thing I want to have happen. So I guess like if it keeps me safer, she, her is fine, but it's not really. Yeah. Yeah.
That's challenging.
Yeah.
That
So,
could be a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that the words come through. Like speaking of femininity, like I like as an assigned female at birth, East Asian person, a lot of times like being expected to play a certain feminine role. Like I since I was a child, I have this like I just like say as far as I can with anything considered feminine. And actually like one of my type of composition, Gliding Dreams, the piece that I composed with Odaiko, it's sort of a place for me to sort of like have that I maybe have that healing space. I don't know, like yeah, like it's a space where I healed from that distance from femininity, and for me to sort of rekindle that femininity, the power of femininity within me, that I can stop pushing that part of me aside, but turn to like love that part of me. And also a piece for me, like I mentioned earlier about improvisation, it's a piece for me to connect with others of all gender, to explore, to sort of harness that, manifest that femininity that is so like, what happened, why did we become so misogynistic that turn to hate femininity or turn to look down on femininity? What happened? And for me, I do that also when I first started performing that piece. I also have such fear of presenting that piece because like, hey, look, I'm like, people look at me as, see me as a woman, see me as an Asian woman, then I fit into that stereotype of doing girly thing with the Odaiko. And I hate that so much. I mean, no one actually blatantly say that to me, but I did receive some comments. So why don't you do like show a little? It took me a very, very long time to come to a place to present a piece in a way that represented authentic other CDs.
For me, that place is with Hachijiro Daiko, actually, where it's like, yeah, kind of the only place where I feel like genuinely invited. I mean, and let me be clear, the ways that Hachijiro Daiko is viewed like outside the island, gendered as masculine, like masculinized or feminized, like that's not necessarily how everyone views it on the island. So which is to say, like on one hand, so I started playing with my first group, my cousins cycle in uh, San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And not powerful, and it was seen as it was seen as hyper feminine, because there are certain techniques that are used that actually, when you talk to people on the island, like for them it's also about accessibility. It's about ensuring that Hachijo Daiko can really be played in community. Everyone can be playing, not actually these things that you may consider pretty twirly and stuff. Like, actually this is to help when you're intoxicated, or you've had a long day, and you're just coming together in community, and everybody's kind of playing and singing about like what's going on in their life, or trying to basically just it's a completely different kind of form. It's actually, I mean, not to say that it's not meant to be impressive, but just that like the genderedness of it is sometimes like not, it doesn't map on the same way. And I think I feel like I actually love learning about these kinds of things, because it shows me that like these chains that I hate, honestly, these chains around gender and basically social control. It's not gender, it's just social control, social and financial control, that these things haven't always been this way. Many people, many folks, even folks who like, this is not about tradition. It's not about rural versus city. It's not about Asian versus Western. It's not about older generation versus younger. That is all false, because when I go somewhere like Hachidojima, and even though it is far from the city, even though it like there are elders there, like, no, like those are some of the people who sometimes have the greatest space in their heart to embrace us as we are. So I'm entirely tired of this idea that you're the problem because you're new and you're trans and you're the wrong race and you're this. And no, actually, like, our elders are down with us. It's sometimes the people in the middle who are the problem, actually. And a lot of people aren't ready to hear that. So even with the organizations that we've been working with, it's incredibly demoralizing. It's very difficult to do this organizing work, because even the folks who are most progressive, some of the folks we think of as the most at the forefront of supporting women and taiko, supporting gender equality and taiko stuff, and that's good, but we when someone is talking about that, maybe shutting them down and trying to silence them and remove yourself from the wisdom that's being offered to you is not helpful for the community. And so it's like, some days you're making a choice, I feel like, as as an organizer, of like, do I let this one go and have the community, and also like this mentor who I care about, like, have even more distance with them and have this person mad at me? Or do I sit down and keep trying to work through it, make a community, try to help reduce the social control? It's really, it's not tradition. It's not like, tradition is completely different. Please be nice to tradition. Don't. Hello? Uh-oh.
Oh, okay, there you go. It cut out for just a second. Oh, now you guys are frozen. I think you're going to come back in a minute. Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Okay, I think we can hear you again.
Okay.
Did you catch any of that?
I think it started to cut out when you started talking about your final thoughts on kind of, we lost, there we go. I was gonna say we lost the camera. You guys are muted.
We turned off video for a moment, just to see if that would be helpful for you.
Okay.
For us to be able to see and hear you better.
Things are flowing better now.
Yeah. For final thoughts?
The final thoughts about the spot where you're talking about kind of like tradition. Like your final thoughts on that part. That's when it started kind of cutting out.
Yes. Okay, so to repeat those final thoughts on tradition.
Because I think we were talking kind of about like working with like mentors and kind of how those relationships change, and then you start kind of finishing some thoughts on like it is tradition, but it's not tradition. That's where things kind of start cutting out.
Let me clarify that.
Okay,
So
yeah, because I mean, it was cutting in and out. So I was like, I think that's what she was saying.
No.
Or I'm sorry. I think that's what Sawson was saying. Excuse me, I apologize.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Thank you. We love it. Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. Yeah.
We love that word. Thank you. No, you're great.
Yeah.
So, yes, what I was trying to say is that anti-transness or misogyny or pretty much any kind of oppression is not tradition. So oppression, like when a behavior is oppressive, folks need to stop using tradition to hide behind it, because you know what else is traditional? Care for community. You know what else is traditional? Not being greedy. Like, yeah, just taking care of each other, even the least of us. Welcoming a stranger, welcoming someone who is very different from you into your home and into your life, and having trust in them. That's very traditional too. So I'm tired of this idea that, you know, oh, the problem is you're not traditional, because, and again, I just really want to make sure that this comes through, that this idea that our elders are the ones who don't understand us is false. Often our elders are some of the most supportive of us, especially because either they've been through it or they saw it happen, or maybe they finally understand what pain and suffering they might have contributed to, or you know, been a part of and witnessed, and they have the room in their hearts, you know, to ensure that, yeah, that we're here and that we're respected and that we're treated equally. I think it's actually the people sort of like, yeah, I mean, I will just say there's some people who say like, oh, the reason I, you know, it's hard for me to even repeat, but basically some people will blame being older for, potentially for some of their fears around how they may treat others, but which, I mean, fear is normal, that's fine, but it's when someone is saying that I'm older, therefore I don't have to change, that's what I'm saying that isn't reasonable, because actually there are people much older than you who already are happy to change and accept and love whatever's in front of them. So it's not about age. Frankly, that's ageist, you know?
Yeah,
it's not true. So, but yeah. And so the reason I bring up the gender justice is that actually we are not teaching, that's not the right word. We are doing gender justice events tailored to each specific region, tailored to each. We're trying to work in partnership with the groups to develop gender justice events, you know, whether that's, you know, hey, people in our group, we really need to talk, right? Like it could be about, you know, who's playing Odaiko and who's not, you know, just different places where misogyny, you know, and trans antagonism tend to show up. Or it could be about doing something for the local community, right? It just really depends on the group. And, you know, ensuring that like trans youth feel welcome and trans people feel welcome in their communities. So, yeah, so we are actually supported by an incredibly generous grant from the Taiko Community Alliance. So back in September, as Mazain shared, you know, when we had the idea over the summer of like, gosh, maybe we could like teach workshops and like, you know, hopefully get some gas money together, you know, but at that point, I mean, we weren't going to be able to ask Manman to, you know, come with us, even though Manman is such a treasured part of our group. You know, Manman has to, you know, also be putting food on the table and be able to, you know, so Manman has like teaching and so much else going on in Los Angeles. So we had to find a way to make it so that we could, you know, bring Manman also. Yeah. So, and so, you know, yeah, so we actually wrote a grant for the Taiko Community Alliance. So in 2022, the way their granting program worked is that they had 3 tiers worth. So tier 3, you know, pretty much like just no questions asked, you're a Taiko player, we'll, you know, help you with a little bit of money. There was a mid-tier, mid-tier, tier 2, whereas, you know, if you're say doing like an anniversary concert, you know, something benefiting your group or
Mhm.
just city or something. And then there's tier 1 level. So tier 1 level, these are pretty big grants. You know, I think a lot of the groups applying for it are, you know,
Regional gathering.
yeah, like TAGO conferences and things like that.
Yeah, okay,
Basically,
okay.
they're-
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so these are projects that are benefiting an entire region, multiple groups, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so we reached out to Christina McGahey of the Taiko Community Alliance.
Mhm.
We reached out and said, hey, so we're thinking of applying for tier 3, like, you know, but does that make the most sense for us, or should we do tier 2 instead?
Mhm.
And she came back to us and said, no, you need to do tier 1.
Oh,
And
wow.
we're like,
Okay.
wait, are you kidding? We're like,
Nice.
we're not like a whole Taiko conference. Like we're just down and thought about what Christina had said, and we were like, we're benefiting multiple Taiko communities.
That makes sense.
We're benefiting the entire, like the western half of the United States. For a while, there was even a plan to go to Canada, but passport situations haven't been able to get it to work yet. Maybe in the fall, maybe next year. And you know, even still, like there's so many places that we'd love to be able to go. Basically, like, yeah, we realized that
Yeah, this actually planted the seed. Like we started many conversations with different groups.
Mhm.
And I actually originally didn't believe that I could hear, because yeah, like it's just so hard. Like and I used to do travel teaching all by myself.
Uh-huh.
And so I still remember very well in September, one day, you two just call me and say, hey, you know, we're writing this grant. It's like, okay, how can I help? And I could give you advice. I already imagined, I don't think I will be there. And they were like, you know, actually, no, you need to be there. And
it was just going to be a week or two at first. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and then a couple of months ago, you know, no, I don't even remember when we were talking about a full month. I was like, okay.
that was after we found out that we got the grant support. Yeah, basically because we got that grant support, we were like, okay, actually, like what if we don't have that opportunity again, right? And so we said, let's try to do as much as we can. Let's really try to affect more communities. Do you want to talk more about, you know, like how Taiko Arts Midwest came in, helped us?
Yes.
Jen Weir is an amazing human being, like full stop. Yeah. So,
Minneapolis people. Oh yeah, and right now we're also
we are actually like doing this podcast at JK's table. Junko Kobayashi is one of the member of Enzo Daiko, which is part of the Taiko Art Midwest. So we just had lunch here with Chiaki, and then we asked Junko, hey, can we do our podcast here with Tyrone? And so we're just sitting in the corner at the restaurants.
Nice.
Yeah, so we needed a fiscal sponsor for tier 1. And we were looking at a couple of different options, you know, different organizations where you have to like apply and like
pay a lot of money.
Pay a lot of money. They take a certain percentage. And so
Okay. Yeah.
we reached out to Taiko Arts Midwest, especially given that, you know, it's this homecoming Haimweh tour, you know, to the Midwest, Twin Cities. So we asked Jen, like, would you possibly be willing to fiscal sponsor for us? And Jen was just like, yes, you got it. And then we were like, there were just so many things where Jen was like,
Jen just trusted us.
Jen just trusted us so much, and that enabled us to get so much done. And yeah, really was the wind beneath our wings.
Yeah, and it was important to us to also try to keep that grant money within the Taiko community as well, because these other options that we're talking about, like, while, you know, they're very beneficial to artists, like, honestly, there's not that many groups in the Taiko community that currently are willing to serve as fiscal sponsors on grants. So let me back up. Basically, so for tier 1 and for certain other like for other granting organizations, like oftentimes you need to be a nonprofit in order to apply. You know, we're a pretty big organization, and just in general, becoming a nonprofit is it's a lot. I'll say that. I have not done it myself. I have looked into it multiple times, and each time, there's some limitations, and it's a lot. So basically, we knew that we needed to be a fiscally sponsored project of a nonprofit organization, and of course that also allows us to have tax deductible charitable donations accepted in the name of our project. So by the way, for those wondering, you can donate to our project through Taiko Arts Midwest, just in the, sort of in the like, who's at four line, like, please, mention that you're intending to help Mujo Dream Flight or MDF or Haimweh Tour or those, trans non-binary taiko players doing their thing, and Jen Weir will know what you mean.
Yeah, she'll know where it goes.
And yeah, exactly. So basically, like, for TCA, in order to apply for that grant, we had to have a fiscal sponsor. We had to have a 501c3 who would, do this service for us. And there's not a lot of organizations in the taiko community willing to do that right now, even if they're already 501c3s themselves. They're already nonprofits, but they don't do fiscal sponsorship for others. And this is actually something that when we were collating the taiko margins in solidarity, like, we realized that this was actually an unmet need within the taiko community, is that basically people can't apply for grants, for arts grants, for social justice, kind of grants. You can't without a fiscal sponsor if you're not already a nonprofit. So there's like a lot of stuff that just can't be done here. And so we were just so grateful that Taiko Arts Midwest would, do that for us and just completely save the day. And and also happy to be able to keep that money within the taiko community.
Oh man, I was like taking notes, all these questions I was going to ask, and then like a new topic came up. I was like, oh, that's another question I was thinking about. It's like, but now it's like we got to backtrack it like so much time. It's like, oh well, I'm not going to ask that. But I think I'm gonna go back to I'm gonna do a couple callbacks if you all don't mind. When you're talking about working artistically as a trio and kind of like recognizing pain and recognizing spots that what's the word I want to say, utilizing people's strengths in the aspect of the performance or the piece, the song, or whatever it is that you're working on presenting to the audiences. I totally relate to that, because I started Taiko as a trio, and there was three of us that were playing, and so it really kind of you really kind of find out, and you probably know about this, right? When you have just a small amount of people, it's a little harder to hide, and so it's not then it becomes not really kind of hiding someone, right? But it's more of like, okay, well, where can we what do they excel in, and where can we put them into a spot where they can shine? And I think for us, I didn't realize it till a little bit later, but when I was talking to my brother, I would say, yeah, I couldn't do this or that. And it's like, and he's like, well, yeah, I figured that out early on. That's why I put you over here. And I was like, oh, so I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Then he laughed at me, but that's our relationship, right? But I could totally relate and understand about kind of really, figuring out kind of where people excel and where people might not be as proficient in something, and that's okay. But let's find a spot where we can let them shine. Or I thought it's really interesting actually that now that the part of the song that was originally in that thank you, Yatai style is now kind of in like more of like a naname
naname style. I'm still doing yatai.
Yes. So it will,
even though I do both yatai and naname.
Yeah. Right? So I mean,
I am. Yeah, we're making it work for each person.
Yeah, and I think in that way. Yeah, and it changes the context of the piece too, right? Because I mean, originally it wasn't supposed to be like that, right? But then now you've created this new a new piece or a new presentation of it, that I think has its own merits of something that it grew into, right? So I think that's kind of cool.
Design.
Yeah. Well, I guess like a couple things I'll say about that. Like, I think there's like in doing that, there's like a profound recognition of like, where does the heart of the piece lie? Like, I think the heart of the piece isn't necessarily in this thing, is it right, left, or left, right? The heart of the piece, like, isn't in, at least, for concrete, whether all of us are doing, the same thing, in the same stance or in the same form, so, and I think by being flexible flexible and creative enough to make these changes, we actually can like bring out the heart of the piece more.
But it's about
Yeah.
understanding the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want
yeah.
to say that this piece was actually premiered in Los Angeles last month
Yes.
by USC Kazan Taiko.
Hmm.
So Mazain taught it to them. Yeah, and so they premiered it first. So, you know, and especially like for that group, you know, having them do some more focused work on yatai style, and then some focused work on naname style,
Mhm.
and so on, right? Like, so that's something, you know, like they took, you know, they took that time. They, you know, for them, it's good for their learning and so on as well. And also just given the number of players they had,
Yeah.
so basic, well, nah, let's not
Okay.
let's not fully.
Okay.
But
okay.
yeah, no.
Yeah. Another thing.
But basically,
Oh, yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So that's a what you were saying about changing the context of the piece. I guess I would say in this case it doesn't change the context that much, because like the story is what's more important, and you know, like actually it ends up creating even more, like visually it ends up creating even more levels and layers,
Yeah.
you know, to have one person in yatai and another person in naname, because then when we're both in naname, then there's a unity between us. I'm pointing at us because it's
Because you
that's
are
literally
both
what the
playing.
person
Yeah.
is playing.
Got it. Yeah.
And and so all of a sudden actually that becomes newly meaningful.
Yeah. And maybe context is probably not the right word. Maybe it's more
So artistically, right, for us to notice these things and then interest to our performances. Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
So I was saying maybe texture is a better word versus context.
Texture.
Yeah, texture.
Yeah.
That's more of I think what I meant. Yeah.
May I also share one thing that kind of take us to another level of this topic? Different perspective, not necessarily level. So like because of the pain that I've been experiencing. So recently I actually I've been teaching my teenagers class straight out of Taiko Together, Jack Bazaar. So one day I was teaching, my back was just hurting so bad. So then I decided to grab a chair and teach the rest of the class seated.
I think I saw that.
And you saw that, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I was actually having so much fun because like being seated, I'm still like finding ways to feel grounded. I'm still like using my body, using the chairs to be connected to the ground and still be extending and finding like full extension and strength and seating strongly, getting the power strong in the right place, the right moment. And that was actually really empowering. I remember my kids were cheering for me too. Like I was just seated the rest of the time. And of course, I think about like we do have like taiko players who are wheelchair users. We do have lots of taiko players, you know, who have mobility challenge that sometimes need to be seated. But a lot of times it's kind of break my heart to see people just check themselves out. Like this is not for me. And I just need to retire or need to move on to something else. But that's not true. And a shout out to my other projects like Rhythmic Flow Taiko. Like we've been doing this kind of work to promote like, hey, accessibility, inclusion is not to create something separate, create something in isolation to create accessibility. Accessibility could actually happen right here and now, everywhere we are. And like this is in fact, another shout out. We are actually Rhythmic Flow Taiko is actually doing a fundraiser because Rhythmic Flow Taiko is going to the World Parkinson Congress this year in Barcelona in July.
Oh wow, okay.
Three of us from RFT, myself, Vivian Lee, and Galen Rogers. We're representing our collective and going to present RFT at the Parkinson Congress to meet other advocates. Thank you. Thank you for the applause here. And also to learn more about Parkinson's and also to promote taiko to get more people who have Parkinson's or in the Parkinson's community to learn about taiko, and we can help them to be connected with their local groups. And so here's another shout out, anybody who are running a taiko group, teaching taiko group, or run a taiko class, run a taiko space. If you're interested to be more inclusive, like to folks with Parkinson's, like connect with us. We have a whole website that Mazain here help us build that we provide resources and support for anybody who want to just be more inclusive and make Taiko more accessible to people with mobility challenges. And I'm not talking about running a complete brand new class for people with Parkinson's. I'm just talking about existing Taiko practice. How can we be more inclusive? And yeah, thank you.
I mean, I think we've covered such a broad range of topics, and you know, and I think gone deeper into, I think, in some of these topics that I think a lot of people just don't have the exposure to, you know, including myself. You know, I'm not gonna lie and make up something that, you know, I knew a lot of the depths. And not saying that I don't want to say that I didn't think that it was deep, right? But I think, but more of the specifics, just because I think I just don't have a lot of or have had a lot of conversations with folks within the community to you know, to kind of hear some of the I don't want to say struggles, because I don't think that's the right word, but I guess some of the different what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of different, I guess, concerns, experiences. Thank you. Yes, experiences that you have.
Please bring us back, because we also don't speak for these entire communities.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't bring us specifically back. Like, please bring others, like from these communities, to be able to speak for themselves too.
Sure. I mean, I think that, but this is
can go so much depth on, and they're beautiful, wonderful things that make Taiko better. Like, I mean, none of this is like, come see us play. None of this is at the expense of anything.
Yeah.
It's not. Like, I mean,
it's like we've really just kind of scratched the surface, I feel like.
Yeah.
So
can we talk about where are we going next?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of segue into that direction. Just kind of, I think that as we segue into kind of where you're going next, one of the things I learned too is about kind of your tour, is that, you know, and I think this is kind of cool that outside of it being, you know, so personal on so many different levels, but the tour itself, you know, because I think like we think about tour, it's either you think about performing tour or like workshop tour, or performing tour that people are also doing workshops, but more kind of on like the performance aspect is kind of like the main draw to this. But with this tour that you folks are on, it sounds like it's more of kind of a combination of both. In some place it is the performance, and then you're doing some workshops. In some place the workshop is the kind of the main attraction. So I think that's cool that it's like you're able to kind of, depending on where you're going and what makes sense, I guess that's you guys are going with the flow, or so you all are going with the flow, and providing the services, or like I said, what makes sense in the different areas. So maybe if you could kind of talk about where you're going next, and I guess the activities that you're going to be doing, like segueing in, right? Because sometimes there are performances, sometimes it's just workshops. So maybe segueing in, so that way, if people are interested in participating or reaching out to the group to find out how they might be able to join in whatever activities happening, they have a better idea of how to start that conversation with you all.
I want to jump in real quick and say that, you know, so much of this, of planning this tour, I mean, this tour is massive. It's an entire month. And I mean, it's like the logistics behind this have just been, it's constant. Like, you know, even on the way here to lunch, we're, you know, taking more phone calls, figuring out where we're staying next. You know, trying to convince another group to like, hey, are you sure you don't want to add a gender justice workshop? Because, you know, sometimes people just kind of want to focus on the Taiko, and like, I'm always heartened when people want to do a Taiko workshop with me. Like, that's great. Yes, I'd love to do some Hachito stuff with you, but also we need to talk about gender justice, you know, or like, if not talk about it, like, you know, it's just like make it more real in the communities, because so much of the stuff that we were trying to do online, especially during the pandemic, so much organizing work, you know, it's like this is part of our follow-on to that. Like, you know, and it needs to be local. It's not just at a national level. And so that actually, that's a good analogy for what I'd say about how people can participate, you know, coming up, because like, honestly, for some of the places we're going, you know, we still have some open, you know, yeah, we've got some open time.
Mhm.
And like we're looking for more partners. I mean, yeah, you want to throw together a taiko workshop or a taiko performance or something in the next week, we're down for that. We really
Yeah,
are,
okay. Yeah.
you know? Yeah. And I think a lot of folks are, like sometimes when we contact people, they're, passing it off to maybe one of the more senior members in their community and so on. And let me say this as clearly as I can. Sometimes now is your time to shine. So, right, so sometimes expecting a different person, a person who say always does it, like it may not be the most respectful thing to expect them to always do it, again. Like
Mhm.
sometimes actually you taking this initiative to either co-plan or, have a strong part in planning, or, maybe even if others say no, but you really want it to happen, like we do workshops under the trees. Yeah, that's like that's where we practice most of the time in LA, a lot of the time.
Mhm.
So yeah, with minimal equipment and so on, it may seem like it would be nice to have the equipment, in this nice indoor space where we usually practice and where everybody's there. We're so used to living on the margins that I think sometimes like we're used to sort of fitting it in a corner and doing something a little strange, but actually these experiences can be so fulfilling and people really learn a lot. Like we learn a lot from each other even in these spaces.
Uh-huh.
So that's a huge way to participate. Another one, and again, this isn't speaking to the literal locations that we're going, but we've actually been posting on primarily on Instagram. We've been posting, some tour vlogs and updates and stuff, but also composition exercises. Because
Oh.
at least for me, when I founded Dream Team, one of the most important things to me is the idea, both that we can have a taiko group that's sort of like a dream taiko group of like the taiko group that you all like kind of always or as much as possible like want to go to, and like, where we can just go and work so hard together, learn and sort of not be afraid of sort of who's going to get upset about what. I mean, not to say, right, like we're sorry. Anyway, point is that like, yeah, when I founded Dream Team, one of the things I was realizing is that sometimes in the taiko community, there's a lot of sort of hierarchy around who can and can't compose. And even if that hierarchy may be an assumption that certain people can't compose or their compositions are not as good. And hey, look, it follows the exact same kinds of sort of privilege, that we see in other situations.
Mm.
So, right, why is that? That's weird. Who said that? Like, oh, these people can compose, these people can't compose. Right, it's about privilege. It's about who we allow the space to, who we have the patience with to even take instruction and direction and correction and feedback from. So yeah, it's about who's allowed have um to have some of the at a high level artistic expression in this community. And
Mhm.
so in order to diversify that, I've had conversations with I'm not going to name names, but with some of our taiko pioneers saying like I was the only female composer there, or I was the only woman in the room doing something, right?
Yeah.
And where it's like, why are certain people being respected for this and certain people not? And like, it's not to say it's taking nothing away from other composers. Like, we love your pieces, we play them, we're happy, with permission, of course, right?
Yeah.
But so the point is like getting more people composing, whether that's about like thinking, like if it's sort of if our fear is what's getting in the way, or if there's structures getting in the way, either way, we have multiple composition and creativity workshops that we've been teaching. We've had a lot of fun doing them along the road, and some that are special, like specific for this tour, sharing actually even more about our artistic process, specific exercises that we did together to really get brave and tell the stories that need to
Oh,
be told.
uh-huh.
But also we are posting every day on Instagram, at least as much as we can. We are posting composition exercises, little prompts, sometimes not so little, but sometimes just something to get you started. And, we'd love it if people, if you want to share what you're working on, share with our hashtag Haimweh Taiko Tour. So that's hashtag HAIMWEHTAIKOTOUR. And if you don't want to, you can also DM us, or, just talk to us for, feedback, comments. Like, I don't know. I think like, I remember the first time I took a workshop on this from Shoji Kameda, and he's been such a great mentor on composition and creativity, that, like, he says, like, you need feedback. You need to seek a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
And, don't be so in your head about these things. But I think just there's even bigger picture. There's, like, a lot more of, like, the mechanics, and a lot of people think they're not creative enough, or they're not good enough. And so, yeah, we're working to change that directly through posting these exercises. So please, like, feel free to follow along with some of those, do all of them, whatever you want. And they'll be up on our Instagram forever. So you can, take a few of them and, go on a group retreat or with your friends or something. And yeah, we really hope that this can start to democratize and open up composition and creativity, and have more people able to express themselves. But anyway, so those are some ways that people can follow along that may or may not have sort of be what the question you intended was, but that I think is really important for us right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, where are we going next?
Yeah, where are we going next?
Yes, where are we going next?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're going
Yeah,
east.
right. Yeah. So we have a 14-hour drive ahead of us. Actually, we're gonna go stay with my aunt, who lives out in White Sulphur Springs, Montana. It's outside of Bozeman.
We haven't
Yeah.
found any connection in between, so we take the long drive from here to there.
Yes.
We did try.
We tried,
but
we
then
tried.
we haven't found any groups or other connection in
Yeah.
between. So after that,
After that,
Montana,
it's to the Pacific Northwest.
we're heading to you. Yeah, so Seattle, Portland. I'm being abstract here because we're still, there are things in the planning.
Yeah, we're hoping to talk to folks in Eugene,
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, we reached out. So this is a good story. I was like, hey, let's go through Ashland, because isn't Calvin Underwood there? And so we messaged
So
him. And it turns out he moved to North Carolina. So
Okay.
but yeah, for a really long time, former On the Koza and On Ensemble member Calvin
Yeah.
Underwood
Uh-huh.
had been there. And I haven't seen him at too many Taiko conference things, but we'd see him posting for a while. But yeah, so we're trying to hit up the small towns too. And I know it can be a lot to ask, but yeah, so the exact itinerary hasn't been totally nailed down. But well, we do
have
definitely
in the Bay Area. We have lots of things.
and
happening.
Seattle. Yeah, we have a
Seattle,
workshop in
yes.
Seattle for
Yes.
sure. Bay Area, if you're queer, yes. What is that? The 22nd?
So on the 22nd Monday nights, we are going to teach a workshop hosted by Christie's Aki Oshiro, Queer Taiko. So we're gonna be in Oakland, and it's gonna be an all-level Taiko workshops. And do you remember the title?
No boundaries between dance and taiko.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because
Okay.
there are no boundaries between dance and taiko, and let me tell you why.
And then just now actually on the phone with Christy, and we were like, well, maybe we can go hang out after, so a workshop, no boundaries between dance, and then community. And then also we have workshop with G10, and then a couple others doing the negotiating. And then we're gonna go to
ITI.
Yay! We're going to ITI. We're actually
Oh,
gonna
okay,
do
great.
some
Okay.
collaboration.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Furusato.
Yeah, we're teaching at ITI.
Yeah, we are
to be
teaching.
clear.
Yes,
Okay,
we're
okay.
teaching. Yeah, we'll perform we are gonna be performed. Well, I get Mazan and Sasa to perform with me as part of the instructors showcase, and I
Mhm.
also talk other instructors into doing a joint performance with us. Yeah, so
that's-
it's gonna be
That's what made
That's-
27, 28,
Memorial
29.
Memorial
27, yeah.
28,
28,
yeah. Okay.
happening
Memorial.
at Davis, UC Davis,
Mhm.
and that's gonna be entering the last stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we Stockton, Taiko, staying at Furusato.
Yeah.
Then gonna be driving our way back, returning to LA May 31st.
And what days are you guys going to be in Seattle?
Well, the original plan is to arrive on the 16th and then depart on the 20th.
Okay.
That is still shifting.
Okay.
Depends on
Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes, because some of the plan originally kind of fell through.
Right.
So that's why things are shifting right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you hear this, you're in that area, any part of the Pacific Northwest, reach out to us. We are trying our best to reach out to all the people we know, but we only have so many hours in the day. Yeah, so yes, please, yeah, reach out if you hear this. Yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, like Montana too, like Bozeman
Yes.
area, right? If there's
Yeah,
people in Bozeman,
anywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
We're talking to Idaho. Yeah,
yes,
please.
yeah.
And again, because it is so important to us to be trying to connect folks who, like often may feel really disconnected and, like it's, maybe not usual for folks from LA to be coming through and trying to connect with you. Like, honestly, even if it's just a couple people, like even if you don't have any drums, that is no barrier to entry. You don't have to impress us. We love you already.
yes,
And we really want to connect with you. That's what's important.
exactly.
I forgot what I was going to ask you now, but that's okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good to know. Kind of. Oh, I know what it was. So you're saying contact you. What's going to be the best way to reach you if you are going to be kind of coming through someone's town and they want to reach out or add an extra stop to the tour? What's going to be the best way?
I would say social media. We're pretty active. I don't want to put my number. Like I would say text me, but I can't put my number here.
Yeah.
Maybe
I can put my email. No, maybe not.
or maybe
Or
direct
like
DM
social
to
media. Social
Yeah.
media. Like what's happening?
I can't hear.
Yep.
Oh, I
Then-
can hear you guys. You guys can't hear me? No? Oh, no. Maybe you can hear me.
Now
we
we're
can.
Oh, okay, there you go. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah. So we're just trying to figure out the best way. DM on one of your Instagram, maybe?
Yes,
Yeah.
Instagram will be the best place.
Yeah, at Mujo Dream Flight.
I also just sent you our flyer.
Designed by Marina
Of Nikyo
Manju.
Khan, yeah.
Nikyo-kan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And the flyer has our name, so if you type that name, you should be able to find us on Instagram.
Okay, great. I think that might be the way to go then. So direct
That
message
is definitely the way to go because
Yes.
we're posting there a lot.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And plus they'll get all the good content and just kind of see people's compositions since you guys are working on that project too. So
yeah, we're posting videos of shows to Instagram and YouTube as well.
oh, YouTube too. Oh, great. Okay.
Yes.
Also at Mujo Dream Flight on YouTube. Yeah.
All right. So
And
Mujo Dream Flight, YouTube,
to
Instagram. That's going to be the best way to kind of keep track of what's been going on with the tour and kind of where the next stop is next. So we're going to go ahead.
And you can donate it through Taiko Arts Midwest.
Yes.
Tax deductible. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So please do a workshop. Please try to if attend a performance, make a donation. Hopefully, let's see if we can cut down some of the costs and make this at least cost neutral, the minimum. And it'd be great if we can get a profit on this, but cost neutral minimum. And I think we accomplished so many things, but on a practical level, we were able to go and get all of your items to bring back to LA. So that's awesome in itself too. So
Spread some gender justice
there we go.
And love.
and love
And love.
and taiko technique
And love.
and creativity.
Yep, those things are also love.
Yes, they're
Yes,
also
yes.
love. That's very true.
So, awesome. So Mujo Dream Flight, make sure to check out the tour. And I hope that everyone was able to enjoy the show and really learn a lot. I know I did. And like I said, just kind of scratching the just the surface on something that's a lot deeper that I think that we can all learn a lot about if you don't have a lot of exposure. So again, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll be able to post this as soon as possible because no one came to tell me that I have a baby coming today. So that means I'm gonna have more time to be able to download this properly and post it properly. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna miss you next week because the new baby will be coming on Monday. So yeah, so I won't.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so sorry I won't be able to catch y'all when you guys are up here. So because I'll be in the hospital or not sleeping because we have a newborn that's this big or maybe bigger. I don't know. We'll find out soon enough. So again, oh, they're frozen at the last minute. Unfreeze, unfreeze. Unfreeze, maybe. Can you guys hear me?